Hello. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I say why not serve it with an open bar, a beachfront view, and a crowd of unsuspecting wedding guests? My wife thought she was about to renew her vows with the man who loved her unconditionally. What she didn't know was that I had invited her lover, his wife, and every single person she had ever lied to. If you think I went too far, let me ask you this. What kind of person throws away a decade-long marriage for a guy named Todd? Let's start from the beginning. I used to think my wife, Rachel, was the love of my life. We met in college, built a life together, and had one of those relationships people describe as solid. I worked hard, made good money, and gave her a comfortable life, the house, the vacations, the diamond anniversary gifts. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who gets cheated on. But that's the thing about betrayal, it's always waiting just outside the spotlight, ready to rip your reality apart when you least expect it. For a while, I ignored the signs. She was on her phone more than usual, smiling at messages she never let me see. She suddenly had a reason to work late at a job she had never once been passionate about. And then there were the new habits, gym memberships, different perfume, a sudden obsession with lingerie that I never actually saw her wear. The day everything shattered started off like any other. I got home early and found her laughing into her phone. Not the way she laughed at sitcoms. Not the polite chuckle she gave when her friends told unfunny stories. This was soft, intimate, full of warmth. The kind of laugh she used to have for me. Something in my gut told me to stay quiet. So I did. She didn't see me. She was too busy whispering into the phone, twirling her hair like a teenager with a crush. And then I heard her say it. I can't wait to see you again, Todd. 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 The name alone made me want to throw something. Not because it was special, but because it was so painfully ordinary. She was throwing away our marriage for a Todd. I didn't say anything. I just watched, listened, and memorized every detail. And then, I got to work. See, most guys would rage, scream, or pack a suitcase. Not me. I believe in precision. I believe in patience. And I believe that if you're going to take revenge, you do it in style. I spent the next few weeks acting like nothing had changed. I was still the doting husband, bringing her coffee in bed, planning date nights, listening to her complain about minor inconveniences. She had no idea that every compliment, every kiss, every small gesture was just another brick in the stage I was building for her downfall. And then, I had my big idea. Rachel had been hinting at wanting to renew our vows. Something beautiful and intimate to mark our 10-year anniversary. So, naturally, I told her it was a great idea. In fact, I surprised her with the best gift a cheating wife could ask for her. A destination vow renewal. A luxurious, all-expenses-paid ceremony on the beaches of Maui. Just her, me, and our closest friends and family. Oh, and Todd. And Todd's wife. And a few other surprise guests. I could hardly wait. People always say that revenge should be subtle. That if you go too far, it makes you look crazy. But what they don't understand is that cheaters don't deserve mercy. And if you think I was about to let Rachel walk away with her perfect little vow renewal fantasy while she snuck around with Todd the homewrecker, you clearly don't know how deep my pettiness runs. The beauty of this revenge plan was in its elegance. No yelling, no messy confrontation. Just a carefully designed event where she would realize, too late, that she had walked straight into her own public execution. So, while Rachel was busy sneaking off for lunch meetings that ended with her hair slightly messier than before, I was crafting invitations. Naturally, Rachel thought the vow renewal was just for close friends and family. That's what I let her believe. I even sat with her, acting like I cared about the color scheme and floral arrangements, nodding along as she debated between orchids or lilies. Meanwhile, I was finalizing the guest list, the real one. The first people I made sure to invite? Todd and his wife, Melissa. Yes, Todd was married. Because of course he was. These types always are. He wasn't just some single guy with bad morals. He was a walking cliché. A man who had a wife at home but still had the audacity to sneak around with mine. So, I reached out to Melissa. It was easy. She had an Instagram full of happily married content, photos of her and Todd on vacations, smiling at barbecues, celebrating their anniversary just 3 months ago. She had no idea that her husband was spending his lunch breaks in hotel rooms with my wife. I sent her an anonymous email with just enough information to get her attention. A few screenshots of text messages, a hotel receipt, a picture of Rachel and Todd accidentally taken from my phone. It took her exactly 2 hours to respond. Who are you? How do you know this? I didn't answer right away. I let her stew in the doubt. Let her mind run wild. Then, I sent her an official invitation to our vow renewal. If you want to see the truth for yourself, come to Maui. I'll make sure you have a front row seat. With Melissa locked in, I moved on to other key players. Rachel's parents? Invited. Her boss? Invited. Her best friends? Oh, absolutely invited. I wanted as many people as possible to witness what was coming. The best part? Rachel was helping me do it. She was the one calling people, excitedly telling them about the most romantic trip ever. She had no idea that every RSVP was another nail in the coffin of her double life. She even suggested inviting Todd. Todd, the man she was actively cheating with. She wanted him there. Said it would be nice since they had become such good friends. I nearly laughed in her face. But instead, I smiled and said, "That's a great idea, babe." She had no idea how great of an idea it really was. Over the next few weeks, I played my role flawlessly. I booked the venue, arranged the flights, planned every detail with the enthusiasm of a man still deeply in love. Rachel was so blinded by her own arrogance that she didn't notice the little details, like how I never really looked at her when she spoke anymore, or how I had stopped saying, "I love you," without prompting. She was too busy sneaking around, texting Todd under the covers, thinking she was getting away with it. She wasn't. She was walking straight into the most humiliating moment of her life. As the trip got closer, I decided to add one final touch. I bought her a gift, a custom engraved locket with our wedding date on the front. But inside, instead of a sweet message, I had our hotel receipts printed in miniature form, one of our vacations, and one of hers with Todd. A little keepsake to remind her of everything she had thrown away. I planned to give it to her right before the ceremony. The moment when she thought she was at the peak of happiness, right before the crash. Everything was set. Rachel thought she was walking into the most romantic event of her life. What she was really walking into, a front row seat to her own destruction. There's something darkly poetic about watching a cheater pack for their own downfall. Rachel was buzzing with excitement, flitting around our bedroom, tossing bikinis and expensive dresses into her suitcase while humming along to some love song on the radio. She even asked me for fashion advice, as if I cared whether she wore the blue or the red dress when her entire life was about to go up in flames. "Which one do you like better?" she asked, holding up two options. I smiled, because she had no idea I liked neither. "I love whatever makes you happiest," I said, keeping my tone smooth, my expression warm. She beamed at me, kissed me, told me I was the best husband in the world. Oh, the irony. The next day, we arrived at the airport, hand in hand, playing the perfect couple for all our friends and family who were joining us for the trip. Her parents were ecstatic, already talking about how beautiful and emotional the ceremony would be. Our friends were taking selfies, tagging us in posts like #Vow Renewal goals, #couple for life. It was almost too perfect. Rachel was glowing. She had no idea that every single person in that group would soon witness her downfall. Then, Todd arrived. I had been waiting for this moment. He showed up grinning, a man completely unaware that he had stepped into the final act of his own destruction. What made it even better? His wife, Melissa, was right behind him. Rachel's smile faltered for a split second when she saw her, but she quickly masked it, turning to me. "Oh my God, babe. I didn't know Todd and Melissa were coming." I played dumb. "Really? I thought you mentioned inviting them." Her eyes darted toward Todd for just a second, just long enough for me to see the panic creeping in. Melissa greeted me with a knowing smile, shaking my hand. "It was so thoughtful of you to invite us," she said, her voice dripping with something Rachel didn't quite catch. I squeezed her hand back, just enough to let her know this was only the beginning. "Rachel?" She was already sweating. There are few things more awkwardly thrilling than watching two cheaters trapped on an airplane with the people they betrayed. We had first-class seats, but Rachel was too tense to enjoy it. She kept glancing at Todd and Melissa, probably wondering how the hell her affair partner and his wife had ended up on this trip. Todd, for his part, was barely holding it together. He was trapped between his wife and his mistress, and there was nowhere to run. I settled into my seat, ordered a glass of champagne, and watched the show unfold. Melissa was chatty, asking Todd questions he clearly didn't want to answer. "So, babe," she said sweetly, "isn't it funny how you and Rachel have gotten so close?" Todd choked on his drink. Rachel's fingers clenched on her armrest. "Oh, Todd stammered. "Yeah. I mean, work stuff. Just friends." Melissa smiled at me over the rim of her glass. Oh, she was loving this. Rachel? She was stone silent. Halfway through the flight, Rachel excused herself to the bathroom. I gave her a few minutes, then followed. Not to argue, not to gloat, just to let her know that I saw everything. When I knocked lightly on the bathroom door, she opened it just enough to peek out, eyes wide, breath uneven. "What's wrong?" I asked, keeping my voice sweet. Innocent. She hesitated, glanced down the aisle toward where Melissa and Todd were seated, then back at me. Her brain was working overtime. She swallowed. I didn't know they were coming. I tilted my head. Let the silence do the talking. She hated it. Rachel was expecting a reaction from me, anger, jealousy, suspicion. Anything she could use to flip the narrative. But I gave her nothing. I just smiled and whispered, "Don't be nervous, babe. It's going to be a beautiful ceremony." Then I walked away, leaving her standing in that tiny bathroom, drowning in her own paranoia. When we landed in Maui, I could feel Rachel's nerves vibrating through the air. She had spent the entire flight stiff, distracted, barely speaking to me. Meanwhile, Melissa was giggling with our friends, telling everyone how sweet it was that we invited them. Rachel's best friend, Sarah, even commented, "It's so cute that we're all here together. It's like a mini high school reunion." Rachel fake laughed. I could see her soul trying to escape her body. And then, we arrived at the resort. 5-star. Private beach. Luxurious villas. The kind of place where everything looks like paradise. Rachel should have been relaxing in bliss. Instead, she was suffocating. That night, as we got ready for bed in our gorgeous ocean view suite, she barely spoke. Her back was to me as she got under the covers. She was too scared to ask the one question burning in her mind. Why were Todd and Melissa really here? Because deep down, she already knew the answer. As Rachel lay in bed, pretending to sleep, I checked my phone. A message from Melissa popped up. "She's unraveling. This is going to be perfect." I sent back a single reply. "Tomorrow, she loses everything." Rachel thought she was in control. Tomorrow, I was going to prove her wrong. They say karma comes for everyone eventually, but sometimes, karma needs a little push. And today, I was about to give it the hardest shove of its life. Rachel woke up thinking this was going to be the most romantic day of her life. She had no idea she was about to walk into her own personal nightmare. I spent the morning acting like the doting, excited husband. I kissed Rachel's forehead, complimented her dress, and even slipped a small gift box into her hands. Inside, the custom engraved locket. On the outside, it had our wedding date. On the inside, 2 tiny printed hotel receipts. One from our honeymoon 5 years ago. The other? From a hotel she visited with Todd last month. She gasped, then quickly covered her reaction with a forced laugh. "Oh, babe, this is so sweet." I watched her fingers tremble as she closed the locket. She was already unraveling. And I had barely started. The vow renewal was set up beautifully. A breathtaking beachfront altar, chairs arranged in perfect symmetry, white roses lining the aisle. Everything looked picture-perfect. Our guests were already seated, her parents, our friends, her co-workers, and of course, Todd and his wife, Melissa. Melissa was sipping champagne, calm and collected, while Todd looked like he wanted to crawl under a rock. Rachel? She was too focused on trying to keep her fake fairy tale alive to notice the tension growing in the air. The officiant welcomed everyone and gave a heartfelt speech about love, trust, and devotion. Oh, the irony. Then, it was time for our vows. Rachel went first. She poured her heart out, talking about how I was her best friend, how I made her feel safe, loved, and understood, how she wanted forever with me. I almost laughed. Then, the officiant turned to me. "Ethan, do you have your vows?" I smiled, reached into my pocket, and pulled out my phone. Rachel frowned. And then, I pressed play. Todd's voice filled the speakers. Loud. Crystal clear. Rachel's so easy to fool. She actually thinks I'm going to leave Melissa for her. Honestly, I just like the thrill. Rachel froze. Gasps rippled through the audience. Then came the second recording. She keeps saying she loves me, but man, if she knew I was hooking up with someone else too, she'd lose her mind. The color drained from Rachel's face. Melissa? She just sipped her champagne, smirking. Rachel turned to Todd, her expression shifting from shock to pure betrayal. "You," she started, her voice shaking. But I wasn't done yet. I turned to the officiant. "I actually prepared something special," I said smoothly. On cue, one of my friends stood up and turned on a projector. Suddenly, on a massive screen, Rachel's text messages appeared. I can't wait to see you," she had sent Todd. "You make me feel alive while I was at home. working to support her. Every hotel confirmation, all of it, displayed in high definition. The audience exploded. Rachel's mother covered her mouth, horrified. Her father turned red with rage. Our friends? Dead silent. Rachel turned to me, eyes wide, voice trembling. Ethan, please. But I wasn't done. I reached into my pocket and pulled out divorce papers. Already signed. Dated last week. I held them up for everyone to see. Rachel, I said, my voice calm, too calm. I came here today to free you. I stepped back, offering her the papers. You wanted a fresh start with Todd, right? I said. Well, here you go. She just stood there, shaking. Melissa? She stood up, grabbed her own divorce papers, and slammed them onto Todd's lap. Yes, we're both single now, Rachel. Todd looked like he wanted to disappear. Rachel looked like she might pass out. Then she snapped. Rachel screamed. Not cried. Screamed. She lunged for Todd, slapping him across the face. You lied to me? He stumbled back, stunned. Rachel, But she wasn't done. She turned to me, rage twisting her face. You did this, she shrieked, hands shaking. I just smiled. No, Rachel. You did. I just made sure everyone saw it. She stormed toward me, fist clenched, but security stepped in. Yes. I hired security. They blocked her path as she screamed my name, as she tried to salvage her perfect little life. But it was too late. Her parents turned away from her. Her friends whispered among themselves, shaking their heads. Her boss? Oh, he was already on his phone, probably rethinking her job security. And me? I turned to the officiant. Well, I said, I think we're done here. Then, I walked away, leaving Rachel alone in the ruins of the fantasy she built. Rachel wasn't the type to go down quietly. Oh no. She was the type to claw, scream, and drag everyone down with her. And after the humiliation of a lifetime, she did exactly what I expected. She exploded. I didn't walk away. I stood there, arms crossed, watching the beautiful mess unfold as Rachel realized that there was no escape. She turned to Todd first, her hands shaking with rage. You lied to me, she screeched, her voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. Todd, still stunned, backed away slightly. Rachel, Slap. Rachel's hand connected with his face so fast that even I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Gasps rippled through the audience. Melissa snorted into her champagne. Oh, this is better than TV. Todd stumbled back, touching his cheek. What is wrong with you? He shouted. Oh, now you care about honesty? Rachel screamed. After everything? After you said you loved me? Todd blinked. I never. Rachel lunged at him again, but security stepped in. Oh yes, I had hired security. 2 resort staff members rushed forward, blocking her path, hands raised. Ma'am, you need to calm down. Calm down? She lost it. She turned back toward me, her entire body trembling. This is all your fault, she screeched. I raised an eyebrow. Oh really? I think you did a pretty good job destroying yourself. She lunged toward me, hands raised, pure fury in her eyes. I didn't flinch. I wanted her to try it. She got one step before security blocked her again. Let me go, she shrieked, thrashing like a wild animal. At this point, her own father stepped in. That's enough, he roared. Rachel froze. He turned to me, his face hard, unreadable. I need to talk to my daughter. Alone. I gestured to her. Be my guest. Rachel's parents dragged her to the side, but she wasn't done yet. I could hear her mother whispering, trying to calm her down. But Rachel was gone. I can fix this, she shouted. Ethan, please, let's talk. Talk? I laughed. What exactly do you want to talk about? I asked. How you lied to me for months. How you disrespected our marriage. How you brought your boyfriend to our vow renewal. Her mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out. For the first time that night, she had no words. And then, she did something truly insane. She dropped to her knees. I love you, Ethan, she cried. Melissa spit out her drink. Todd winced. The audience? Dead silent. I stared at her, watching the last of her dignity crumble into the sand. You love me. I repeated. That's funny. I don't remember love involving hotel rooms with another man. She burst into tears. I turned to the officiant. Well, this ceremony has been lovely, but I think I'm done. I turned back to Todd. You, however? I tilted my head. You still have unfinished business. Todd swallowed. What? Melissa, still holding her champagne, tossed her divorce papers at his chest. You're single now, she said, her voice icy. Congratulations. Todd stared at the papers like they had physically hurt him. Rachel, still on her knees, realized what just happened. Her head snapped toward him. Wait, what? He stammered. Rachel, She grabbed his collar, pulling him toward her. You said we were going to be together, she whispered, desperation creeping into her voice. You promised me. Todd paled. Rachel shook him. Say something. Todd hesitated. This is a lot, Rachel. Melissa and I exchanged a look. Oh, this was better than I could have planned. Rachel's face twisted in pure horror. You used me, she whispered. Todd backed away. Gotta go. He turned. He ran. Rachel collapsed, sobbing into the sand. Her mother was crying. Her father looked like he was debating whether to disown her or pretend she never existed. The guests were stunned. And me? I just stood there, hands in my pockets, watching her finally feel the consequences of her actions. No screaming. No anger. No second chances. Just the cold, hard reality of what she had done. She destroyed our marriage. She destroyed Todd's. And in the end, she was the only one left with nothing. Rachel sat in the sand, sobbing, her once perfect vow renewal dress now wrinkled, covered in specks of dirt and regret. The guests, once excited for a night of love and celebration, were staring at her like a train wreck they couldn't look away from. Some of them whispered, others awkwardly checked their phones, waiting for an appropriate moment to leave. Her father? Silent, arms crossed, shaking his head. Her mother? Tears streaming down her face, horrified. And Todd? Gone. He had bolted the second Rachel tried to cling to him, probably realizing that his life was in freefall and that sticking around wouldn't save him. Melissa? Absolutely thriving. She had thrown back another glass of champagne and was now casually chatting with one of Rachel's old co-workers like this was just another Saturday night. And me? I stood there, hands in my pockets, watching as the woman who once thought she had everything was left with nothing. For a long time, Rachel didn't speak, just rocked back and forth, staring at the waves, her mind clearly struggling to process that her entire life had been burned to the ground in front of everyone she knew. Then she snapped. She wiped her face, stood up, and stormed toward me. You ruined my life, she hissed, her voice shaking with rage and desperation. I raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? You planned this, she shrieked. You set me up. I let out a slow sigh. Rachel, I didn't make you cheat. I didn't force you to sneak around, to lie, to throw away our marriage for a man who ran at the first sign of trouble. You did that. She clenched her fists so tightly that I half expected her nails to draw blood. You were supposed to love me, she said, her voice breaking. I smiled. I did. Until you gave me a reason not to. And just like that, she crumbled again. Her hands covered her face, her shoulders shaking as humiliation, guilt, and betrayal crushed her at once. Somewhere behind me, Melissa let out a little mocking whistle. Phew. That was rough. Rachel lifted her head, rage flickering back in her eyes. She turned on Melissa. You ruined this too. Melissa snorted. Oh no, sweetheart. You did that all by yourself. She patted her purse, where she had Todd's divorce papers tucked inside like a trophy. I'm just here for the fireworks. Rachel was shaking now, completely out of control. And then, she turned back to me. You're not getting away with this, she spat. I shrugged. I already did. And then, for the final icing on the disaster cake, I reached into my pocket and handed her a small envelope. What is this? She muttered. Your flight details, I said smoothly. You're flying home alone. Her face twisted in horror. You're leaving me here? I nodded toward the resort entrance, where her suitcase had already been brought down by the staff. Your things are packed. Room's been canceled. The rest of us? We're staying. You. I smiled. You can figure it out. The shock in her eyes was almost beautiful. She spun toward her parents. Mom? Dad? Her father shook his head. You're on your own, Rachel. Melissa let out a little mock gasp. Oof. That's rough. Rachel was breaking. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her whole life, the house, the marriage, the money, the job, the reputation, was crumbling in real time. And then, she snapped. She let out a raw, animalistic scream, turned, and stormed off toward the exit. Not gracefully. Not with dignity. Like a woman whose soul had been dragged through a hurricane. The second she was gone, the entire resort exhaled. The tension broke. And then, to my surprise, someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire crowd. I turned, a little stunned, as our friends, her former co-workers, Even some random hotel guests who had been watching from the bar applauded the most dramatic takedown they had ever seen. Melissa grinned. That was satisfying. I picked up a drink from the tray of a passing waiter, took a slow sip. Then, I turned back to the guests, raised my glass, and simply said, "Enjoy the rest of your stay." And just like that, Rachel was officially nothing but a memory. Rachel? A wreck. She tried calling me, texting me, emailing me, begging, threatening, making excuses. I blocked her on everything. Last I heard, she moved in with a friend, is job hopping, and is trying to fix her reputation. Not going great for her. Todd? Oh, he got the worst of it. Melissa took everything. He lost his apartment, most of his money, and, oh, this is my favorite part, his job. Turns out, his boss didn't love finding out he was using company hours and funds for personal affairs. Melissa? Absolutely thriving. She took a trip to Europe, started dating a much better guy, and is still sending me occasional memes about cheaters getting karma. And me? I stayed in Maui, extended my vacation, took some surfing lessons, met someone new. Because nothing, and I mean nothing, makes a fresh start feel better than knowing the person who betrayed you is living in their own personal disaster. Some say revenge isn't worth it, that you should be the bigger person. Maybe, but watching Rachel lose everything? That was the best decision I've ever made. Bye-bye.